Hello, everyone. You're welcome to another exciting, enlightening, and informative episode on the Amogate Radio's Communications Program. I remain your host, Adikbeju Jayoba. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for listening in. And I am very sure that you're going to learn so much insightful information that would help your organization adjust to the changes that you want to implement in this new year. Yes, changes. So far on this series, we've been considering good practices in change management. And one of the things we've been considering so far is that change is inevitable and change comes for us all, whether in life or in business. Change is constant. You expect, or we expect, changes to occur. Even in life, you see changes. In organisms, as long as there is life, one of the things that is constant is change. Also, in the business landscape of the 21st century is characterized by the rapid change that is brought about due to technological, economic, political, and social changes. And in the business space or in the workplace, it is no longer the case that, managers or employees of firms, look forward to the same change every year. What used to work this year might not work next year. It is that fast. In fact, in the same year, you can have technological advancements or new softwares, new AIs, better ways of doing things that would cause major changes or cause some form of changes in your organization. Not to talk about, the increase of intermigration amongst, countries in the world. You have a lot of people moving from one country to another. So it means that at any point, any employee in your organization can tell you and say, hey, boss, I'm relocating to another country. And then you have to start to look for a new person. You have to recruit a new person and know that your new employee is going to come with their own perspectives, their own philosophies, their own attitudinal change, and that would also impact your organization. And so change constantly occurs. Another thing that we must agree on is that, the pace of change in the 21st century particularly is so rapid and is so vast that organizations that don't quickly adjust and adapt to these changes might quickly become obsolete or find themselves at the back burner very quickly. And like I said, that's because new and better and improved ways and systems of doing things are coming up. Competitors are looking for ways to outdo their competition. They're looking for ways to stand out in their industry. And so every organization is researching better ways to rendering their services or delivering their products. And so it means that organizations must constantly adapt to change. And like I said last week, if you see any organization that resists change, then you're looking at an organization that would soon become irrelevant in the business space. A popular adage says that he who rejects change is the architect of decay. And the only human institution that rejects change or progress is the cemetery. That means that if anyone rejects change, they are getting close to their hand. Because, one of the things that change does is that it puts you ahead. So it is very critical and important that organizations develop the capabilities and systems or structures to adapt and to steer change in their advantage. That is very important. And because of the so much changes that is going on, and because organizations need to manage these changes so that they don't go out of hand and direct this change in their favor, then change management protocol, change management approach must be in place in every organization. And then so far we've been looking at change management, and we said that change management is the complex or systematic approach of handling all the processes, the steps, and the principles that comes with change. Is basically that structure that is in place that helps change from conception to communication to implementation to evaluation, checking if your change process or your change project was a success, and then resolution when change has been fully adopted and embedded in your organizational structure and culture. So that is change management. And it requires serious attention, in every organization, and it involves everyone's involvement in your organization. And I mean from your senior management to the lowest cadres of employees. Everyone must be involved in your change project in order to achieve a meaningful or a progressive transformation or success across various levels. That is very important. And one of the things we've seen is that over the years, organizations are focused on expanding their businesses worldwide. You see a lot of organizations wanting to open new branches, of their organizations in different countries. That's because the world has become, as big as the world is, it has become so small. As global as the world is, you will be amazed that the market has also become very local, with technology at our disposal and with information at your fingertips. You can, be in one country and have so many clients in another country. And because of this, organizations want to focus on achieving excellence in processes and operations. They want to implement new innovations in technology, and they want to identify the right talent that is, required for their organization, that will be a best fit in their organization to give them that competitive and winning edge. And all that will cause certain changes, or will cause that the organization goes through change from time to time. And that is why change management is very key and very essential in every organization. And so today we will be considering together principles that are important for change management. These principles I was talking about are actionable steps that you can put in place to ensure that your change management protocol or your change management structure is one that is infallible. Of course, there are times that change comes in ways that even our plans, did not envisage. However, when you have a structure in place, even when an unknown change or an unexpected change comes in place, you can still manage through. A very good example of an unexpected change was COVID-19. The pandemic came at a time nobody was preparing for. Many organizations had no protocol or had no structure to adjust to COVID-19. The lockdown locked a lot of businesses down. However, for organizations that already had certain structures that could allow for flexibility, they quickly bounced back compared to organizations that had no protocol whatsoever. And you'll be amazed that research shows that more than 40% of businesses that were running up until 2019 were swept away by the scourge of COVID-19. What is sad news? It means that 40% of businesses never recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't know why, but could it be that because they did not have a change management protocol, a change management approach to adjust to that unexpected change that came to the whole world? What am I saying? These steps I want to discuss with you today would help put your organization in a position where it is always prepared to handle whatever change that comes to it. And so these steps or these principles I'll be talking about today starts with the first one, which is prepare the organization for change. I'll repeat that again. Prepare the organization for change. You must let everyone know, from your management to the lowest cadres of your employees, that change is inevitable and change can come at any time and in any form. Even if change does not come from your internal processes, if you guys are fine internally and you have a strong culture that works for you, you have highly productive and efficient employees, and you guys are achieving amazing success, external factors can impact your organization. Like the example I gave earlier, COVID-19, it was something no one could preempt, and it was something no one could stop. It came and it changed the way we do things in the business world. It changed everything. And so you must prepare your organization for change. Another example that I gave is change in governmental administration. A government might support or bring up a policy that favors your organization. And another administration can come up with policies or regulations that no longer supports maybe certain ways of doing things in your organization. So you must prepare your organization for change. For an organization to successfully pursue and implement change, it must be prepared both logistically and culturally. Cultural preparation must take place first to achieve the best outcome for change. And when I'm talking about this, I mean you must prepare your employees before you talk about logistics, before you talk about having laid down procedures, written down procedures, before you take probably legal actions, before you put all that into play, before you have the formal processes of a change management protocol. The first thing is to prepare your employees culturally. And what it means that your employees must know that change is coming. You must talk about it in your board meetings. You must talk about it in staff meetings. You must, even in the culture of your organization, how you do things, your employees must know that at any time things can change in the organization, and how that will impact their work systems, how it will impact probably work timings, how it will impact their immediate work environment. All that must be communicated to the employees. So in this preparation phase, one of the things you as a manager or as a leader must do is that you must help employees recognize and understand the need for change. You must raise awareness of the various challenges or problems that face your organization, and those challenges would act as forces of change. And so you must let your employees know that all change is not bad. Yes, change might not be easy. In fact, a lot of times change is not easy, but you must let them know that it is for the good of your organization, or it is to move your organization from good to better. Just in case you're doing very well, let your employees know that the challenges you are currently facing will be platforms for change. For example, if you're having dissatisfied customers, as an organization, you don't want to continue that trend. You want to look into the reasons why your customers or your clients are dissatisfied, and you want to implement new ways or better ways of attending to your clients. Those are things you want to look at. So you want to look at how things currently stand, because that is how you can measure if this change has achieved the desired goal or the desired outcome that you expect of it. The next thing that your strategic plan should contain is project stakeholders and team. Who are the project stakeholders and team? Who will oversee the task of implementing the change? Is it the management? Is it a particular team or a particular unit in your organization, a particular department? Is it a particular person and everybody follows whatever that particular person does? Who will oversee the task of implementing change? That is a very key question you want to answer. You don't want to leave change to anybody and everybody, because he might not work. Anybody sometimes in your organization is nobody. Have you ever walked into a room and you said something like, somebody answer a question, and then everyone is looking at everyone to answer the question and no one is really responding? Sometimes in implementing change, there has to be an arrowhead. there has to be a focal person. There has to be somebody in charge who is making the decisions and saying, okay, at this level of change, this is what we need to do. Now that we've gotten to this level, we need to stop and evaluate. Somebody has to be in charge. Somebody needs to be responsible with steering the vehicle of change. So imagine change as a car. There has to be a driver. So you need to know who needs to sign off at each critical stage, who will be responsible for implementation. All that needs to be imputed in your strategic plan. And also your strategic plan must contain the project scope. What steps or actions will this project include? It must include, okay, we'll start from this step and then we go to this step. And then when we get to this step, we'll take a pause, maybe a 2 weeks break or a 2 months break. We'll evaluate what we've done so far to know whether we should go back to the beginning or if we should continue on our project scope. There must be steps and actions that are included in your change project. Now, having said this, while it is important to have a structured approach, one of the things that you must also include in your plan is that your strategic plan must account for any unforeseen circumstances or emergencies that could arise during the implementation process. A very good example is, what if the arrowhead for the change implementation project falls ill? Who takes over? Or what if the person, or what if strategic members of the team decide to leave your organization? How do you adjust? How do you manage that? Your strategic plan should also make preparations for unforeseen circumstances or emergencies that can arise at any time. This would require agility and flexibility. You would need flexible plans, like, okay, if so person leaves, this comes on board. Okay, what if you're planning a project and then you have adverse weather conditions, you have a storm come up, you have a hurricane come up, and that has to affect your plan? You must put all that in your strategic plan. Okay, if this shows up, then we'll divert our attention or our energy into this direction. So that must be included in your plan. So you must create or craft a vision and plan for change. That is the second step for having second principle in your change management approach. The third step in your change management approach is implement the changes. And I would say that this is the most important stage. It is good to plan. It is good to prepare. First of all, it is good to plan. Planning can be very beautiful. You can bring all the brilliant, sharp minds in your organization. You can come up with a very wonderful plan that includes or covers every aspect of the change that is about to come up in your organization. However, all that is still talk. Implementing the change is now the action part. This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where all hands get dirty. And this is where you begin to know whether the change that is being implemented in your organization would really achieve the desired outcome, or if you would have to discard that change and go for another kind of change, or if you have to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate the change and say, okay, we want to change the way we do things, but we don't think this particular kind of change would work for us. We believe we need to rethink our strategies or our way of doing things. So after the plan has been created, what remains is to follow the steps that have been outlined in your strategic plan. And so, where you come, or where we talk about implementing changes, it involves, looking at the changes that would affect your company structure, that would affect your company strategy, systems, processes, employee behavior, and other aspects of your organization. So during the implementation process, change managers must be focused on empowering their employees to take the necessary steps to achieve the goals. Those steps you've written in your strategic plan, your strategic change plan. Your managers must look for ways to communicate it, first of all, to the employees and empower them to take those necessary steps so that the goals or the purpose for the change can be achieved. Another thing they must do is that they must also anticipate roadblocks and prevent, remove, or mitigate them once identified. So let's look at the following steps that can help you implement change in a positive way. Ensure that everyone involved in the change understand what needs to happen and what it means for them. Like I've, been saying, your employees must know the reason for the change and they must know the impact of the change on them. For example, if you're going to be making changes probably to resumption time, your employees need to know that, okay, this is the reason why we're changing our resumption from probably 9 a.m. to 8 a.m. or probably why we're changing from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. They need to know the reason for the change. They need to know the impact. They need to know what will happen to them, what it means for that change to occur. So ensure that everyone involved in the change understand what needs to happen. Then agree success criteria for your changes and make sure that they are regularly measured and reported on. Everyone, particularly in your management team, must agree on the success criteria. And so from time to time, they must check what is happening in the organization, what is being implemented with the success metrics they have put on ground. We said we want this to occur in the organization. We want our customers to be satisfied and happy. We've implemented these changes for the past 2 months. Are customers satisfied, or we still have the same complaints? You want to make sure that you're checking regularly, measuring regularly. Then another way, another step that can help implementation of change in organization is that map and identify all of the key stakeholders that will be involved in the change and define their level of involvement. Let everyone who will be involved in the implementation of change know. Let them know their roles, let them know their responsibilities, and let them know to what degree they are involved in the change. Let them know. You don't want to bumping on people unexpectedly and say, oh, you're supposed to be doing this or you're supposed to be responsible for this. Let them know early on so that everyone knows their step and their roles in the change process. Also, appoint change agents or drivers who will help to put the new practices into place and who can act as role models for the new approach. Like I said earlier, change is good, especially if it's a change that is moving you from good to better or is moving your organization from better to best. Change is good. However, change is not easy. People are used to a certain way of doing things. And so when you come and you say, oh, we are moving from this to this, we are effecting certain changes in the organization, we are no longer going to be dressing this way, or we're no longer going to be, working on this project or this product, we're switching to this, we are relocating from this place to another place, all that will cause some form of friction to people. It won't be easy. A very good example, if you're relocating from a certain location to a different location, some employees probably stay quite close to the organization and commuting to the office probably takes them 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. They're in the office. It's not stressful for them. And now you're relocating to a different place. Those employees who stayed close to your former location will find it difficult. They'll probably frown at that change because probably now they have to commute 30 to 45 minutes, from their house. That would not be easy on them. So look for change drivers, those who would, act as support systems and those who can help to drive the change or, drive these new practices. Those who act as role models, those who would probably, be on the ground, give a listening ear, offer a hug or a pat on the shoulder. Those who would help your employees ease into this change. Make sure you appoint them. Also, find ways to change people's habits so that the new practices become the norm. That is very important. And make sure that everyone is supported throughout the change process. If you want your implementation to be successful, make sure that people are supported every step of the way so that they don't resist your change blatantly. You want to make sure that they are supported and they are eased through the transition of the change in your organization. The fourth step or principle of change management is communicate change. Communication is a very essential and very important component of change management. The change that you want to implement in your organization has to be clear and relevant so that people understand what you want them to do and why they need to do what you want them to do. It is very important. If you're changing, let me give a very good example. There was a time when, like I've said, I said last week, when using a typewriter was the highest form of technology for typing in offices. Using a typewriter, or you walk into any office in the early maybe 70s or 60s, it was okay. And then you want to ease people from that form of technology, and some people got very used to it. They became very dexterous at using it, and now you want to bring them from that world. I'm using as an example, bring them from the world of typewriter into using a computer. That would take some time, so you need to ease them into it. And how do you do that? Communication. Let them know the reason for the change, and let them know why you want them to change and what they're expected to do. You must communicate clearly. People must understand. Also, you have to set the right tone so that you get the response, particularly the emotional response you're looking for. In communication, you have to make sure that you set the right tone and you communicate in the right atmosphere. You don't want to walk up to your employees and sound like a tyrant, like, now guys, we are changing this and that is final. I don't care how you guys feel. I don't care. No, you don't want to do that in your organization. So you want to ensure that you communicate and get the right response from them. So it is a good idea to link the changes that you're planning, to your organization's mission or vision statement. So you can come out and say, as an organization, we are poised to do this, or our goal is to make customers happy. And if you look at our processes in the last 5 years, a lot of our customers have been dissatisfied. So that is why we want to change this and this and this and this in our organization, so that at the end of the day, our customers will be happy and will be the number one brand in our industry. That is a beautiful way to communicate the changes that you want implemented in your organization. You can, associate the change to the vision statements. You can also help them see how that this change will bring about your impact them positively. When people know that the change will impact their lives positively, they'll be more attuned to adjusting to the change, compared to if they don't know the benefit that the change poses for them. If we just feel like we're doing this just because our bosses said we should do it, there might be some form of friction and resistance. But when people realize that not only will the organization benefit from this change, but I as an individual, as an employee of this organization, I'll benefit from this change, then they'll be more willing to undertake the change. Also, one of the things that you must do is that you must practice a good stakeholder management. This will ensure that you give the right people the right message at the right time. You must practice good stakeholder management. Remember what we said, stakeholders refer to those who will be involved in the change project. So you want to make sure that those who will really be involved in the implementation of the change project get the right message. You want to ensure that those who will be responsible for implementing change know what they're supposed to be doing at what time. Then the fifth process, or the fifth principle to change management, is embed changes within company culture and practices. Remember that last year we looked at organizational culture, and one of the things we talked about is that the culture of your organization will influence how things are being done in your organization. And I mean from informal things like dressing, how you talk, to very formal things like business processes and procedures. And so when you're implementing change, one of the things you want to do is that, or when change is being implemented in your organization, one of the very important things you want to do is to ensure that this change is implemented or is embedded into your organizational culture. And so, like I talked about, the example I gave, if you're going to be changing resumption time, you want to make sure it is in the culture. And if you're going to be doing this, one of the first things or one of the most important things you want to do as a business leader is that you want to lead by example. You want to show your employees that this is the new way of doing things in the organization, and this is the pattern everyone is expected to follow. And so once a change initiative has been completed or implemented in the organization, then managers must prevent a reversion back to the status quo by acting out or practicing this new change or this new practice or this new way of doing things. It must be embedded in the culture. And this is particularly important for organizational change that is related to business processes such as workflows, like I said, or strategy formulation. Without this, if you don't embed the change in your culture, employees are likely to slide into the old way of doing things, particularly during the transition period. And that might not bode well for your organization, because it's like going from good to better, and then you slide back from better into good. And sometimes some organizations even slide way past good into bad. So you want to ensure that employees don't go back into the former way of doing things, particularly if it was a system that was not working for your organization. If it was a system that was not bringing the desired outcome or results for your organization, you want to ensure that your employees don't slide back into that way, because people are used to the status quo and people enjoy the status quo. People are comfortable with the status quo. And so one of the things you want to make sure you do is that you embed change within your organization's culture and practices. One of the things you can also do here is that you can also put reward systems in place to help celebrate change or celebrate those who adjust to the change. So if you bring up a new change, you can put reward systems, little bonuses here and there, little incentives to help motivate and encourage your employees as they transition through the change process. And then the sixth and the last principle I would be looking at today is review your progress and analyze change results. Just because a change initiative is complete doesn't mean it was successful. Like I said earlier, there is a reason why your organization is undergoing a certain kind of change. There is an outcome, a goal, a vision, an objective that is set before you. And so even though you are done with the change, you want to ask yourself, did we achieve what we set out to achieve? That is a very, very important question to ask as you implement and as you complete a change initiative or project. You want to ask, did we hit the milestone? Did we reach our goal? Did it achieve the results we wanted it to achieve, or did we fall short? And so conducting analysis and review after a change project or a change process can help business leaders understand whether a change initiative was a success, or if it was a failure, or if it was mixed results. It's neither here or there. We didn't fail, but we also didn't succeed. You want to make sure that you analyze that. You want to make sure that you are sure of where you stand in your change initiative. It can also offer valuable insights. I'm talking about reviewing and analyzing your progress and your change results. It can offer valuable insights and lessons that can be leveraged in future change efforts. So you want to ask yourself, this change that we implemented, was it met by resistance? Did our employees take to this change? If they did, bravo for your organization. What did we do? And if they did not, or if the resistance was too strong that the change became a failure, what didn't we do well? Or what did we do that was wrong? What do we need to correct? Next time, if we're bringing up a change in initiative, what should we pay attention to? What needs to be in our strategic plans? All that, comes up in your review, and that would help your organization position itself for success when the next change initiative is to come up. So while no change initiatives are the same, they typically follow similar process. So to effectively manage change in your organization, managers and business leaders must thoroughly understand the steps involved. So I will just go through, a summary of the processes once again, or the steps of the principles. So the first thing is, you want to ask yourself questions like, do you understand the forces making change necessary? Do you understand why the change is necessary to your organization? That's the first step, and that talks about preparation. The second step is, do you have a plan? Because without a detailed plan and defined strategy, it will be difficult to usher a change initiative from conception through to completion. So it talks about planning. That's the second step. Don't forget that. The third step is, how will you communicate the change? How will you communicate it? Remember, I talked about communication. Successful change management requires effective communication with both your team members and key stakeholders. So you must develop and design a communication strategy that acknowledges that, change is important, but also acknowledges the reality of your organization. It's one thing to say, I want my organization to change. Another thing to also acknowledge the reality. Are my employees competent enough to take on this change? Are they empowered to take on this change? A very good example is, if you want your employees to start to dress in a certain way, do they have enough resources to dress in that, in that way you desire? Your communication strategy also has to acknowledge reality. Then the fourth is, you must look at those involved in your change initiative. You must look at your stakeholders, very important. You must also consider the steps involved in the implementation of your change. Then lastly, you must consider and identify potential roadblocks. While it is impossible to predict everything that might potentially go wrong with a change project, you must take time to anticipate potential barriers and come up with strategies to mitigate this change before, you must come up with, strategies to mitigate these obstacles before they come, so that they don't disrupt the good idea or the change initiative that you have come up with. Change is good. Change can position your organization ahead in your industry. Change can take you from the backside of your industry to becoming one of the best brands in your industry. And so change is very important. And one of the things you must know as a business leader, I'm saying to you today, is that don't be afraid of change. I know that once people hear of change, people are thinking of bad things, people are thinking of difficulties. Change can be very instrumental to the progress and success of your organization. All you need to do is to prepare for it, plan for it, communicate it effectively, put strategies to implement the change properly, stop, take a breath to review and analyze your processes, and I can assure you that success is waiting for you at the end of your change project. That will be all we'll be taking today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you learned something very useful for your organization. For questions, for comments, for feedbacks, you can visit us at www.theamogate.org. We'd love to listen to your questions. We'd love to hear from you. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We would love to connect with you. Until I come your way, same time next week, keep being amazing and keep changing and keep being the best in your industry. Bye for now.